Hello, everyone, and welcome to Penny for a Tale. We have a lovely guest with us today that I'm super excited about engaging with and talking with. But that is coming very soon. Right before that, Spence is going to give you an introduction about them.
Oh, sweet. So, hi. We're getting ready to name this interview segment, but we haven't decided on it yet, but coming soon, a title for all of our interviews. I'm Spence, Mitch's cohort, and I also do the Game School podcast over at TSR, and I do Resident Moon Audiobook Solutions, and I do Nostalgia Pilots podcast, and all that. But right now we are here to talk to Mark. Mark, please introduce yourself.
Great, yeah. I'm Mark Truman. I'm one of the co-founders of Magpie Games. You might know me from stuff like Urban Shadows, which is one of the first games I wrote with Andrew Medeiros. And then more recently, stuff like Cartel is the game that I'm finishing up this year. But I've also worked on things like 7th Sea 2nd Edition, some bunch of stuff from Fate Core. So I've been a full-time professional in the industry for the last couple of years, and it's really a pleasure to talk to you all about games and fun things instead of living in the word mine. So this is a welcome.
I know, right? Just
It's a
happy,
nice little
fun
distraction.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
Happy,
So,
fun thoughts.
You've had a couple of your games get onto major streams for like live gameplay. How has that been for you?
Oh, like first of all, it's just really weird. Like I'm a nerd. I was a nerd in like the 80s, like playing role-playing games in like base Scouts when we'd have sleepovers for days on end, right? So this idea that like cool people play games is just so still like kind of mind blowing. Or the people like watch games, like we just it's just like wow, you kept up with it. It's just crazy. So it's really neat to see people take this instrument. That's how we kind of think of it. It's like I'm making a guitar or a violin, and like play awesome music with it, and use it as a performance tool. So for Urban Shadows, I know. The Adventure Zone did some Urban Shadow stuff. They hacked it pretty deeply and did their own thing with it. And then we've had people do stuff with Roots or Cartel. It's very humbling to see people take it and do their own thing with it. Be like, cool, I guess it worked, or it had this momentum that they seized upon.
Yeah.
Oh man, Roots is definitely something I've been wanting to try out. The art is very unique and amazing. But what kind of, because it feels very different from kind of the other product line of Magpie Games. What was kind of the thing that made you guys go for that as a TTRPG?
I mean, the story of how we started working on Root is like we're just nerds, man. Like we were playing Roots at the office after hours because that's what we do with our time is like apparently play more games. So we're playing Root, and it was like literally halfway through the game, I was looking at the board and I was like, no. This would be a pretty cool RPG. And then my next thought was like, we make those. Like,
that, right? Hey guys, so, we could do this, right?
Yeah.
Right, we could do this, right? So we messaged Patrick Leader, who's the owner of Leader Games, the company that makes Root. And we had friends of friends, so we're 1 degree of separation away. And I just said, like, hey, man, we make RPGs, and if you don't know about us, we're happy to talk about what we do, but how would you like to do a Root RPG? And he was like, oh, I love RPGs. He's like, I know you guys. You made Bluebeard's Bride, and et cetera, et cetera. And we were like, great, yeah, let's do this. So, our lawyers talked to their lawyers, and we're like, great, we're going. And what we quickly realized was that it is a very different game than a lot of the other stuff we've done because it's really open. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, like, Cartel, we're like, hey, these are the conflicts you're going to have with Cartel. It's very tight, very social, very, like, Tarantino meets, right, like, Once Upon a Time in Mexico meets The Wire, right? It's very, very, very focused. And then when we see stuff like Root, like our job is to make it very open. So if you want to be murder hobos and wander around the woods causing trouble, then cool, the game's got to support that. We think it's most interesting when you play not heroes, not villains who are caught up in the politics of it, but we understand not every group's going to go for that. So we're trying to build an RPG that has a little bit more space. And that does change. Like Urban Shadows is a bigger game than Cartel. There's more to do.
Yeah.
More kinds of options. So we see Root as in some ways one of our biggest games. Like it's really open. But we love fantasy adventure. I mean, we played a lot of Dungeon World, we played a lot of D&D. Like we want to create a space where people can have that.
Yeah.
We're a party of heroes with the heroes, like big asterisks next to the heroes. Like
Yeah.
we sometimes do the right thing.
Sometimes, every now and then.
Yeah, every now and then, having these adventures against the backdrop of this war, right? And that for us was the part that spoke to us. It's not go kill monsters and take their stuff. It's there's a lot of factions here, and they have opinions about where the woodland should go, and your vagabonds are like right in the middle of all of that stuff.
Yeah. So when you were kind of looking over it, kind of with the influences of the board game and stuff like that, and obviously like the industry is filled with like fantasy, the fantasy genre is huge. How'd you approach it to try to make it kind of a unique experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, part of it is that we do a lot of work in the Power to the Apocalypse engine, obviously. So we were immediately like, these types of vagabonds sure seem like playbooks, right? So we're like, immediately we're like the Arbiter and the Thief, like this makes a lot of sense. But we really wanted to capture, I think, the feeling of the world changing around you. So there's actually a lot of stuff on the GM side that's about how the clearings and things change with the war. So your job as the GM is to represent this kind of ever-changing world, but one that's not just like whatever you come up with. Like it's, here are the cats and the birds and the otters and the lizards, and they have these really cool interactions we wanted to capture from the game. And we're trying to mechanize a little bit of that so that the GM can represent those in the fiction. And then on top of that is like anthropomorphic animals are kind of really fun. Like getting to be a fox ranger or an owl thief is like really cute, right? And so a lot of what I like about Mouse Guard, for example, is the same thing. Like these little mice are on strike, and they won't send one more paw of ore until it is resolved. You're like, oh, it's so cute, but also so brave. That's what we wanted to capture for Root, right? Is that like the animals aren't really animals. Like it's not a thing. You're not hunting, or like you're playing these sort of fairy tale like creatures, right? Who have these sort of bigger than life personalities because they're really a fox or an owl or wolf or whatever.
Oh man, it's like,
so for us that's what it's about, is the combination of this like really, really dynamic world and then these really adorable / disturbing / compelling weird animal spaces, right? Really
and it's pretty much done, right? The Kickstarter was super successful, everyone loves it, and they can order it from your store, magpiegames.com, right?
Well, we don't. It's not published yet. I mean, we have not. So when you say it's done, it's like, oh, I wish I could see how my fingers got things to be done. No, we're in the laborious process of getting files ready to go to the printer, writing GM text, like moving from the mechanics, the quick start, the thing that you can play and try, to all of the dice that are finished, all of the decks of cards, everything. So over the next 6 months plus, we're working very closely with Kyle, who's the artist for Root, to get new art for the game and fill the whole thing out. So I would say, it's going to be in stores probably the end of the year, like Q4 is what we're kind of looking at. So I don't want to give a hard date, but
so
towards the end, we'll get it way earlier.
Yeah.
So in your in some of your handbooks, like I've got my titles on here.
Yeah.
So pretty. One of the things I really liked was that you list your inspirations for the different archetypes. Did you do something similar with the new game?
With Roots?
Yeah.
Well, Roots an interesting one because there aren't as many direct inspirations, right? So like the Arbiter, if I say, okay, here's the Arbiter, they're this character that maybe a little too invested in justice.
Yeah.
That way they've been kind of thrown out of their community and they have to be a vagabond who wanders from clearing to clearing. It's such a specific archetype for Root that I'm not sure that we'll say, oh, this is like this kind of character. In general, we do. So I would have to talk to Brendan to find out if he's planning on doing it here. But like if you breed Masks, which is our superhero game, then he's got a bunch of Teen Titans and Young and Justice characters and things. Cartel, I have a laundry list of here are some various Sicarios that have shown up in movies and things. We love that because I think it gives people a sense of what that character's about. But Root is really different because it's got that fairy tale fantasy element. So if I say, oh, this thief is kind of like Robin Hood, I'm like, but is it like Robin Hood? Because it's so much its own thing. So I think we'll have to think about whether that makes sense for this book.
Gotcha. So that's part of the reason that I picked up Urban Shadows. I was looking at the inspiration. I'm like, oh, I've watched that show. I've read that book. I've watched that show. I love that show. Yeah.
I mean, I remember the quick start for Cartel and just going immediately to I think the TV series was actually just called Cartel, and just consuming all of that in preparation for running it, and it was so much great stuff to pull from.
Yeah, I've been watching the El Chapo series lately because I've been writing the section. I'm finishing the section on like the history of the drug cartel. So the El Chapo one really captures this moment in which things shifted from one set of cartels to the modern kind of setup. And yeah, like there's so much cool media for this, and that's kind of the thing with Root is the board game. Like that's what it is. And the expansions add a lot to it. The additional species that you can play and additional ways of playing the game and additional vagabonds. And so I think we're really focused on that, trying to get across, here's all of this cool game, that trying to put it all in there from minute one so that you can right away play with the otters and the lizards and all this other stuff. Trying to really focus on that and make sure that we convey our fandom. Because I think one of the things people might be surprised about is we didn't pick Root because we did some big analysis of like, well, which board game might be an interesting RPG? It's literally, we love this game and we think it's super interesting and it really spoke to us and we're excited to share it in a new way with a new audience.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, super excited.
So how often do you get to play outside of when you're done with work and then everybody hangs out around the table to play?
It's interesting. I think people both like under and overestimate how much we play games. Like on one hand, we play a lot of games because we're like we've got to know what's going on, right? So I'm always trying a new RPG. I'm always running a thing I haven't run before. I very much want to see what everybody else is doing. So for example, this weekend I started a new campaign of Godbound, which is this really, really cool OSR fantasy game from Kevin Crawford, in which you play characters who are touched by these words of creation. So you might be a Godbound of song, a Godbound of vengeance, a Godbound of sword, and you're like you become part of that. That's like intrinsic to you, and you become this like really powerful thing that then has to make decisions about what happens in the world. And it turns out to just be an incredible framework for RPGs, but I've never run it. So it's like, cool, I'll run it and I'll learn from it and I'll grow from it because I'm running it.
And that's free on Drive-Thru RPG. I've been wanting to check that out.
And the free edition of Godbound is fantastic all by itself. Like download it. We're huge Kevin Crawford fan people over here. Like we have our own Magpie game of Godbound that we play with a lot of our designers. And like it's a lot of fun. At the same time, there are definitely days where I get home and I'm like, I don't want to see a board game or a role-playing game today. Like, I need to do something that is so not work, right? And what's the joke when you make your hobby your profession? You'll live in terror every day of how you've never lived up to your own expectations, right? Like, so there is this feeling that like, we really try to avoid just like, it's weird to be like my Thursday game night is a work thing, right? Because I'm play testing this new Cartel thing or whatever. So more games than you would think, fewer games than you might hope, right? And the hard work we do, the number of times we role play things at work is really low because we're all really focused on like, okay, I got to write Cartel. I got a page done today. That's a good day. Like, a page, right? It's so slow.
So, what does a non-game relaxation thing look like for you?
I mean, I think for all of us, it's pretty different. I'm probably I do really enjoy running games that aren't ours, like for sure. Like if you, that's the funny part is you're like, what does Magpie play? I play a lot of Burning Wheel and OSR, like because it's not
everything else but Magpie.
Everything else, right? Yeah, because it's work if it's running Urban Shadows. No, we actually play poker with a friend, which is a game, but not really a game.
It's more of a strategy game of who can bluff who.
Yeah, exactly. It's more of a competition, like a sport. And
Oh no, we
And
lost.
like, you
Oh,
know,
there we
it
go.
was in a running. Oh, sorry.
We lost you for
Running.
like 30 for like 10 seconds.
Oh no,
You're
no
good
problem.
now.
So yeah, like we going out running, trying to get away from the computer screens. I think one thing all of us have in common is a feeling of like, man, computers are for work, and I just got to go play video games or something, not looking at web browsers. Like we
Yeah.
definitely try to have some space to unplug.
Yeah. I'm waiting for somebody to be like, I crochet, and then I can tell them, oh look, I'm doing the same thing, because I cannot sit still.
Our new marketing director brought her the scarf that she's knitting to our last playtest.
Nice.
Right,
That's really
sat
cool.
there the whole time. So yeah, we're all very much, I think, interested in the tactical, like what you know, the tactile, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling of doing something in addition to like being in our heads all day.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Awesome.
much better than me. I just lay on the couch.
Well, you have a toddler to entertain you.
Yeah, you have plenty of tactile engagement.
Yeah. Well, slaps in the face. So Magpie Games has a very kind of widespread variety of different types of games. I mean, Bluebeard's Bride is amazing, but definitely feels very different from everything else. And Cartel, which will be coming out later this year, definitely has a different feel that can go from very serious to more, you know, that the Western spaghetti type of Mexican drama.
Like
yeah,
the
so
showdown where there's two people with guns and et cetera, et
exactly.
cetera. Yeah.
How do you guys just kind of go after these types of games? What allows you to kind of make such variety of games?
Yeah, I think that a big part of what we try to do here is nurture creativity. So we're not interested in what game is going to appeal to a particular market share as much as we're interested in like whether a game might have an audience. So when we started working on Bluebeard's Bride, the three creators, Whitney Beltran, Marissa Kelly, and Sarah Malone, or Sarah Doom is what she often goes by. Sarah Richardson, I think she's credited in the book. We looked at their work and we said, this is awesome. Like, this is super cool, super interesting, definitely challenges what a game is. So for example, in that game, you all play the same person, the bride, who's been told by her husband that she can have her full run of the house except this one room, which of course, you know, in the fairy tale, she opens it and discovers all his dead wives and then he murders her. But like, you know, in the game, you play her and you all play her. You all play different aspects of her. So it's like Inside Out, right? Where like you're all living in the head together and there's only one body.
And then you have to control who controls what.
Yeah, one person has the ring, and that person gets to say what happens. Other people can say, I look at things, or I want to know more about the world, or whatever, but one person is the bride's, you know, in control, right, of the bride's actions. And so when we looked at this for the first time, and I saw the first draft of it, I was just like, this is awesome. This is so cool. If this doesn't have an audience, damn well should have an audience. So let's see what we can do with this. And there are products that we've stepped back and we've said, you know, like I have this procedural, like crime procedural game sort of based around like a Gotham City Police Department thing called By the Book that I've worked on for a number of years. And it just doesn't really have an audience. Like I think there's a lot of people who like crime fiction, but there's not a lot of RPGers who are like, I wish I could play Law and Order. That's what I want so bad, right? So we have to be realistic about like, does this really have an audience? But there are some games that speak to you and say, this is really important, cool work. And then there are some games that are like, this is a Teen Titans game. People are going to love this. This is awesome.
Yeah, like
it's easy to say yes to.
Yeah.
Wide appeal, right? Brute. Like, we think lots of people are going to like these cute fantasy animals. So we really think of ourselves like a movie studio. It's not our job to just make cool art and it's all going to work out. Like it's not really a very feasible long-term plan. So in the end, what we say is, here are some projects we really think are valuable. Like I think Cartel for me is a culmination of not only my design path, but my identity, like with understanding my own culture and my own culture stories and my own wish to make RPGs more Latino, right? Less European and more this thing that was true to me when I was growing up and the kinds of stories I wish I could have told. And then Root is like cute fantasy animals, right? So how do we think about this? Well, we think about them as all being part of the same attempt at greatness in all things. Right? We want to make an awesome Root game. We want to make an awesome Cartel game. We want to make an awesome Bluebeard's Bride game. And each of those things is hopefully supporting each other and learning from each other and growing from each other, so that we are able to offer a wide variety of different ideas and emotions and engagements. And so therefore, when somebody finds Urban Shadows and like, oh man, I love urban fantasy, this is so cool, we have delivered something that's really special and precious to them, and not just cranked out 17 Urban Shadows supplements.
And you also challenge the players to put themselves in another person's shoes, which I thought was really unique. You're challenged to play as a minority, a different gender, etc. So what do you tell players who are sitting down and see this call to action and are like, I feel really weird about doing that because I don't want to culturally appropriate, I don't want to misrepresent, I don't want to do XYZ?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, to be clear about this, if you're not super familiar with these games, is a lot of the times when you're playing, if you're playing Bluebeard's Bride, you're playing aspects of the bride. So if you're a man, then guess what? You're playing aspects of the bride. You don't get to kind of say, well, hold on, but I want to play the male aspect of the bride. It's like, well, okay, there's more masculine aspects of the bride, I guess, but the bride is a woman. That's her thing. So this is a game of feminine horror. So get on board, man. We're doing this, right? Yep. And so it really does challenge you to be like, why am I role playing? What is role playing? What roles am I taking on? And so the first thing is that we do emphasize like thinking about safety tools and thinking about making people comfortable at the table. So we do want people to like play with an X card where you can tap the card and say, too much, or take on the parts of playing a minority person that you feel comfortable taking on. Like you just play a Black person. They're people, so they act like you act, and you don't need to make their Blackness somehow central to their character, right? But there's also a part of me that says, it's the Juno Diaz quote is like, motherfuckers will read a book that's Elvish, but you put a couple sentences in Spanish and suddenly people think everybody's, white people think Spanish people are taking over, right? And that feeling of like, just try it, man. Like you play elves, you can play brown people, right? You can do it, right? Is really a rejection of the lens of cultural appropriation as shared. Cultural appropriation for me is when somebody takes our stories and makes money off of them while crediting themselves and pretending we don't exist. It's not giving us the microphone or trying out Mexican food or like, trying, if you want to make enchiladas at home, good. People are making enchiladas at home for a long time. Join the club.
Tasty.
Right? They're tasty. We like them. We think they're good. You buy tacos from the taco truck. We buy tacos from the taco truck. Surprise, right? But when you invent a wrap, which is just a tortilla, and then you claim you've invented something new, it just feels weird to me, right? So when you're playing Cartel or you're playing Urban Shadows, you're playing Bluebeard's Bride, and the game invites you to do those things, we want to challenge you to do them, but more importantly, we want to make it possible for you. We want to tell you it is normal when you're telling a story about urban fantasy for people of color to be central to it. So guess what? You're a PC. I got some news for you, buddy. You're going to be central to the story. I mean, unless your GM is terrible, you should be central to what's about to happen, right? So if you play a woman, then guess what? Women are central to the story. And when I watch Urban Shadows games unfold, they always feel to me like the TV show I wish was real, right? Like there's this Mexican werewolf who lives in LA and this Chinese immortal who's like come from China, and then like over here is this white woman who moved here from Seattle and now she's unaware, and I'm like, this sounds so cool. Why doesn't this show exist? Right? Why isn't this real? And role playing gives us the ability to do that. So yes, we want people to play respectfully and thoughtfully, but also we want them to just make enchiladas, man. It's not that hard.
I will say from my personal experience, I learned a lot about the Romani people because I decided that my person was from Romania, a refugee from Romania. So it was great. It was a lot of fun. And my friend who I played with for 2.5 years, we ended up doing a lot of the gameplay on Discord after our tabletop version ended. They took the Fae archetype or no, not the Fae, the Tainted, and changed it to a djinn.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And brought in a lot of that mythology, and which was really cool. So we learned a lot about a bunch of different cultures because of it.
Well, right. And that's for me the thing about the elves, right? It's not just a snarky joke. It's that I didn't know who elves were before I played D&D, really.
Yeah.
Like, it's not part of, like, when I was a kid, there was no sort of, my parents didn't really read Lord of the Rings. They listened to Zeppelin. They weren't those kind of people. Yeah. So when I started playing D&D and I'm like, elves and dwarves, whoa, so cool. I then read everything about elves and dwarves. So you can do the same thing about real people. Like, it turns out there's lots of information online about Romani people or Mexican people or the African-American experience. And I think there is a point at which I have played with people who are like kind of laying claim to stuff they don't know. It's like, hey man, like, this is weird. You've made this weird.
Yeah.
But most people just show up and play. And then if they go home and they're like, yeah, I was thinking about it. Like, my guy came from Baltimore. So like, I was thinking about his family, and like, it actually makes sense that his family probably came over at this time, and then they were probably enslaved, and then they got free. And then I'm like, yeah, like, this is great stuff. This is you authoring your character in a way that's authentic to the communities that it's engaged with, right? And I think that's really special. I also play D&D and play elves, and I don't worry too much about it too, right? So it's both.
Yeah, and like I really like how the tabletop game, just in general, kind of builds, or you hope it kind of builds that empathy of, you know, playing D&D. I've read lots about elves and dwarves. I know more than I probably should about a made-up fantastical thing.
Right. I know the social structure of drow. Right?
Exactly. It's like, and when will that help me? I don't know.
Yeah,
But it's cool to see all these new role-playing games, and especially coming from Magpie, about these experiences that we get to try out in a safe context, as we kind of build empathy and learn more about cultures outside of our own. And then it's worthwhile, more so than like the elves and the dwarves, in my opinion, because then you can engage with other people and say, hey, I've looked at stuff from your country and it looks really amazing and really cool. Tell me more.
Yeah, it makes me think of two things. One is we played Tenra Banshee Zero a couple months ago, which is this. It's actually from Japan. It's like
that's what's his name? Was it Andy, right?
Andy Kitkowski, yeah. He translated it though. It's actually a Japanese RPG, and it is just such a Japanese RPG. Like, it's like every trope, every idea, it like slammed into one thing. And I had that moment where I was like, man, I don't know enough about this. And then like, there's the joke around The Office is that I always play sad samurai. Like, all of my characters are like John Wick. They're like, man, I don't want to have to do this, but and then so my buddy was like, you can literally play a sad samurai. And I was like, oh, I'm totally in. So I was looking over the samurai stuff. I was like, this is so bonkers, because you have these like demon crystals embedded in you and all this stuff. I'm like, this is so crazy. But it's also awesome, right? And we start playing, and it's just this whole different space. And then it made me think about that. For most of my life as a brown person, I have played in white spaces. So, right, it's like my default when I play D&D is to not play brown people, because brown people didn't exist in D&D when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, there was no like these other worlds that have now been built, right, didn't exist really. So I was just playing an elf, right? I remember reading Dragonlance and being like, man, this half-elf guy who's caught between two cultures sure speaks to me. I don't know why, right? Like, he seems really like my kind of guy, right? Those were all just metaphors. And so when I think about white people playing in these spaces, like white people coming to Cartel, it's like, yeah, man, that's what I do. That's what I did all the time, right? Is to work in a culture that's not mine. And it was fine. I learned from it. I grew from it. I want you to do the same thing. And I want you to have some empathy for these people. So when you see on the news, you know, this thing happened, you can start to be like, I wonder what the real story is there. I wonder what's behind the immediate mask, but really deeply there for those refugees, those people, those narcos, whoever they are.
Yeah, definitely.
So as we wrap up, is there any game or anything really exciting coming up that you want people to check out?
Well, I mean, first of all, we're working on the Pasión de las Pasiones Kickstarter right now, which is we're going to see Brandon Leon Gambetta, who wrote on Ashcan for Pasión de las Pasiones, the game of telenovela, romantic and drama, right? He's been working on the full version for the last like 2 years now. and we have got it pretty much done. And we're now looking at the Kickstarter. While I'm here meeting with you, I can see my team in the other room is having the meeting for the final sort of art assets for the Kickstarter. So look in February for that Kickstarter, which Brandon's going to be it's his project, so he's taking the lead on it. But we are publishing it, and we are for all the reasons, everything we just talked about. We are so excited, right? Because it is like the ultimate step into another place kind of thing. Even for me, because I didn't watch a lot of telenovelas when I was a kid. So learning that like pirates are a regular part of telenovelas. Okay, cool, man, we're doing it, right? Pirates. But it's such an amazing game for playing with narrative and playing with drama and playing with that like over the top romantic fervor that I think only a soap opera can deliver.
So, you were speaking my language.
Mine too. So clearly we need to do a one shot when the game comes out.
We will be on it.
Yeah.
And of course, the other big thing for me is Nahual, which is coming out this year too, which is Miguel Angel Espinosa's game of Mexican urban fantasy, where he played Nahuales, who are these like people who are blessed with the ability to see angels, who they then hunt. Right?
I backed that. I remember that. Yeah.
So we joke that we got this like little Latin explosion going on. But, Nahual is so like dark and interesting and weird, and Passion is so like light and over the top. And I feel like Cartel and all these games they're operating in the space of really trying to create some real space for Latin expression, Latino expression, that is authentically us, not like a metaphor, not a jump, but like you're Mexican werewolves and you run a taco truck, right? Like, and that's fun and cool, right? And so I'm really excited about both of those projects, and it's so heartening for me to see other creators. So I just, there's nothing like seeing a community start to form around this little sliver of what we do.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Amazing stuff. So everyone, please check out Magpie Games. You will find it in the details right below if you're watching on YouTube. Definitely post it on the side here if you're still checking out on Twitch. But yeah, Mark, thank you so much for giving us this time in learning us some things about Magpie Games. This is truly an honor.
Well, thank you both. I mean, you two have been just really wonderful folks to talk with about this. And when we're moving into a new office this month, and so it kind of feels really real. And this is actually one of the last interview I'll do from this office.
Oh man!
Aww.
It's so cool to see people embrace this, because like I was saying, when I was a kid in the '80s, it's like couldn't imagine people being like, "Here's this narco fiction game that has people really excited, and you wrote it." I was like, "Oh."
I know, it's so unique and so interesting. Like, I love the direction, and then all the stuff you have coming out for the new year. Yes. Everyone check that out on Kickstarter. We are going to do one-shots of it. It's amazing stuff. We are so excited.
Well, thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to us. And like I said, I'm still just mind blown that people want to play our games anytime. Every time we joke like, really? Okay, cool. Let's do it.
All the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and keep it here on our Twitch stream. We are going to be back with another exciting interview.
It's going to be awesome. All right, everyone. Bye.